Hello guys, in this tutorial I'm going to explain you how to do the lab report of changes of state. So we're going to start with the abstract. In the abstract you need to include the four parts that need to be addressed, why it was done, the experiment, what is the problem being addressed, what did you do, what did you find out, and the conclusions. Here you have two examples. The first sample, it's an abstract that is not correctly written. Then in the second sample you have the abstract correctly written, and in this example you can see how an abstract can be written. So that will be the abstract. Then you're going to do the introduction. Okay, so to explain the introduction, I'm going to make reference to the rubric. Okay, so first of all, in the introduction, you need to state the problem or the question of research, and look at the maximum grade of the item of the rubric. So for stating the problem, you need to give a detailed account of the problem you want to investigate using scientific facts and sources and how it is connected to the topic you're studying. And you have stated the problem as a research question that includes your variables. So remember that you need to include, so this will be the purpose that can be addressed as a question of research. So to obtain the maximum grade, you need to take into account what is said in the rubric. The second thing that you need to include in the introduction is the hypothesis. So going back again to the rubric, so my hypothesis is testable, and I provide details about my variables using words like increase, decrease, no change, and I have supported it clearly using correct scientific reasoning in my because statement. So here in the hypothesis, you need to explain that changes of states occur because you increase or decrease the temperature, so that will provoke changes of the internal structure of the water, and that will make a change of state. So here in your hypothesis, okay, be aware of the particles, that the theory of particles, to explain the change of state. So that will be the second part of the introduction, and the third part will be the background information. So in the background information, you need to include, okay, three things. You need to include general information about water. So here in the general information about water, you need to talk about the structure of water, the properties of water, and all the information that you can provide about water. Then the second thing that you need to include in the background information is the states of matter. So in the states of matter, you need to talk about the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas, and how those states of matter are distributed in terms of particles. Okay, so here you need to talk about states of matter in terms of the corpuscular kinetic theory of particles that you can find in ScienceBits or in any website. And finally, you need to talk about the changes of state. Here in the changes of state, you need to talk about the 4 changes of state or 6 changes of state that you are going to include in your lab report. So the changes of state are evaporation, condensation, freezing, melting, and the two extras are sublimation and reverse sublimation. Remember, you need to include the changes of state and the information about the changes of state. You need to include how they happen in terms of the corpuscular kinetic model. Okay, so to look at the corpuscular kinetic model, so you need to go to Science Bits, and in Science Bits, in the unit 2, okay, unit 3, sorry, here you have some information about the, okay, so the corpuscular kinetic model here, and the states of matter here, and the changes of states, okay, here. So here you can find the information of changes of state in terms of the kinetic, the corpuscular kinetic model, and look at the rubric. So for obtaining the maximum grade, you have given detailed account of background information, and you have supported it clearly with images or diagrams. So remember to include some image or some diagrams to support the background information when you write the background information. Now let's do the third part. The third part is materials. So here in the materials, you can use the materials that we have used in the experiments in the school or at home. So try to include all the materials that we have used at school or at home. Then remember, in the materials, okay, you need to include a section that it's called safety concerns. Safety concerns, okay, are safety procedures that we need to be aware of when doing these experiments. Okay, we work with fire. Also, we need to watch out when we're working with glassware and other things that you consider important to include. Now, variables. So, table of variables. So here in the variables, as always, include a table, insert a table. So with 3 columns, okay, and 4 rows. This is the type of variable, the definition, sorry, the name of variable, and the definition. Okay, type of variables, and you have independent, dependent, and control. Okay, the independent variable here is the one that we change to measure the change of state. So here normally what we change is the time. So time will be the independent variable most of the times. But in the experiment of melting, we also use another independent variable that will be the temperature. Okay, that would change the temperature. So when you define the two independent variables, you need to explain, okay, here the time. So you need to explain in what experiments it's a time, the independent variable and how you measure it. And the same with temperature. The dependent variable, the one that we measure, it's the change of state. Change of state. And the change of state, we measure it taking pictures of the process of the process of state changing. So the dependent variable is the change of state, is the one that we measure, and the control variables, you can include here different control variables: the water use, and the conditions, pressure conditions, also the freezer for the freezing change of state, and others that you consider that you need to include. Okay, and once we have done the variables, the next one will be the experimental procedure. Okay, so in the experimental procedure, you're going to separate here. You're going to separate the 4 or 6 experimental procedures that you made. Okay, so you're going to include here six or 4, depending if you include the sublimation. So the first one will be the condensation. The second one will be evaporation. The third one, freezing. The next one, melting. And the extra ones, 5.5 sublimation and reverse sublimation. So for doing the experimental procedure, you can use the guidelines of the packet that I give you, and obviously the freezing, the sublimation, the reverse sublimation, you need to explain how you did it. Okay, so that will be the first part of the lab report. For doing the variables here, you need to take into account that you have given detailed account of how to manipulate the independent variable, how to measure the dependent variable, to collect sufficient relevant data, and how to manipulate all the control variables. And for the procedure, remember to include your procedures that are safe, complete, and logical. Someone else will have no problem with my lab because I describe how to work with the variables and collect data. I have selected every material I will need, and I include quantities, and I won't need to ask for anything on the day of the lab. So your procedure must be clear, and well explained, so someone else could do it. Okay, so that will be the first part of the experiment.